Hey everybody, so let's talk about Project 2. So essentially Project 2 is all about taking the design that you've already made and applying some responsive code to it. By responsive, I mean mobile responsive. This is a coding strategy that uses something called media queries that helps your website recognize, or really the browser helps the browser recognize how to distribute your website, how to render it, depending on the device that you're on. Okay, so this project should be relatively easy for you if you're using the existing files from your project one, but I'm going to assume that you're not. So we're going to take some time today and I'm going to build a site from scratch and then also include the media queries as well as a few other tips and tricks. So the first majority, the first half of this video, I think is just going to be a refresher for you, but I do want to start from scratch, assuming that you will be as well. But again, hopefully you're not. All right. So I'm going to start a new file. And I'm just going to call this RJ test, and we'll save that in my local root folder. Make a new folder here. Call this ccac_test. All right, there we go. So there's rjtest.html. And I'm going to affix a style sheet to it. So let's go to my local root folder. Good there. Let's call this style. Hit OK. We can see that these files are linked, so we're good there. Perfect. And now I'm just going to build a really simple structure for my website. Okay, there's the header. ER1. ER2. And then the footer. Save that. And then let's create the selectors. Just kind of rapid fire right down the line here. If you hear some beeps and boops, it's because I've got my email open. I have to have that open today. I'm expecting some different kinds of news from clients and my job, so you'll have to pardon those noises. All right, so there are my selectors. Now let's just go through and apply some characteristics. Stick with a red color scheme here, but add some variations of color. Okay, so I've got my file set up there. let's go ahead and preview that in the browser. So I'm going to navigate to my local root folder. CCC test, RJ test. Good. Everything is there. So I need to just change one color to differentiate my ERs. We'll use a light gray. Save, refresh. Okay, good. So this should look familiar to you. Now I'm going to use my floats. Okay, getting there. Oh, perfect. All right. So here's my full width website. Yay, it looks great. And then when I compress the browser, you'll notice that it condenses the width of the website. Okay, which is fine. That's okay. It looks fine here, but maybe I want this sidebar to go underneath this white area. So I need ER2 to go under ER1. And, you know, maybe I don't want red as my header. I want that to be a different color when I'm looking on a mobile device, which is what crunching the browser in, resizing the browser is meant to simulate. Okay, so I've got all my CSS here looking good. There's a few other things that I want to do first. I'm just going to call this, put in some content based on the name of the divs. And then I also want to make these links. So I'm just going to select that content and go to my properties bar, choose HTML. I'm just going to put in a hashtag for now on all of my content. The hashtag is also called an anchor tag, and anchor tags aren't technically a new URL or anything like that. They aren't pages necessarily. What they're intended to do is take you from the top of the page to another part of the same web page. So think of them as shortcuts. But right now, I'm just using that hashtag as filler. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here and refresh, and you can see I've got links here. That's fine. They all look good. But I want to add some page properties, meaning I want to click on page properties, go to links CSS, and then I want to give these some very specific colors and customizations. So the link color, the base link color is going to be black. The size, let's make it 10. The rollover, when you mouse over the link, it's going to be yellow. If it's a visited link, that is basically the browser telling you you've already been to that destination. And an active link is a link that you have active in like another tab or another browser window. And I'm going to show the underline only on rollover. So when I hit apply, you'll see that my source code, my HTML, has changed. All of this CSS has been added to my HTML file, and I actually don't want it there. So I'm going to select all of it, get rid of lines 7 through 9, and I'm going to paste this into my CSS file. Make sure you file save all, so the HTML file is also going to be affected. Hit refresh, and now you can see that my links have changed. Now it's purple because, again, it's an active link. I've been there, so don't feel like that is an error. I coded it correctly. Okay, but I want that font size to be a little bigger. So I'm going to make that 15, refresh, and now it's at a bigger size. Notice also when I roll over, it's yellow and it's hard to see, but it's also got an underline on it. Okay, so that's good, better, closer, warmer. All right, so let's go to this section in your CSS designer. Okay, I'm going to add a new media query. Okay. So there are a lot of media queries here, okay? And they cover a lot of ground. You're only going to be using the screen function, and you're going to be using some of these different items here, okay? So before we get into that though, I want to show you a little trick. Gotta open this soda. All right. I want to show you a little trick. And you kind of have to be a bit of a detective when doing this, okay? So you're going to go to File, New. And then if you click on, let's say, Starter Templates, and then go to Responsive Starters, you're going to see 3 different pages. You'll see an About page, a blog post, and an e-commerce site. I'm going to choose About page. And it's going to create that file. And when you look at the CSS file of that About page, you're going to see the code for that. And you want to be able to read that and understand what's happening there. So when you move down, you're going to see on line 180, at media only screen and minimum width, etc. Okay. So to clarify, you'll see header here underneath the media query, and then you'll also see it up here several times, specifically there. With media queries in your CSS, you can have repeat selectors, because essentially what's happening is if your selector occurs outside of a media query, your browser is going to render that regularly by default as you designed it. But then your browser is going to see down here on line 180, oh, hey, I see you have a media query. So when my browser window is 480 pixels maximum width, I'm going to redesign all of the selectors that occurred outside of the media query to fit these new definitions. Okay, I know that can be a little confusing, especially when you're coding and Dreamweaver might flag you for having duplicate code. But if you put that second cloned selector basically inside of a media query, then it's fine, okay? So I'm gonna pop back over to my file and let's go to at media, and we're gonna choose media screen and hit okay. And you'll see that I can now add in my selectors here. But while you're doing this, also refer back to your reference. So this says at media only screen and minimum width and maximum width. So I'm just going to copy this. Oh, my clipboard failed. Okay. I'm just going to copy this and replace it up here. Okay, that obviously did not work. All right, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to copy my header content. And the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color to purple. All right, let's save it. And when I go back to the browser and hit refresh, full width browser, nothing changes. All right, but when I condense it down, refresh, also nothing happens. All right, so let's test this out a little bit. So I don't know what the width of my browser is right now. Okay, I'm going to keep pulling out and nothing seems to be changing. So I'm going to try this. Is it a Is it another browser that it's going to work in? Why isn't it working in Chrome? All right, well, oh, look at that. Okay, so I'm going to pull out the browser in Firefox, and you'll see it, it maintains its design composition and everything. And then as I pull that browser in to get closer to the width of a phone, you'll see that it kicks over. All right, that is responsive design. That is using a media query to change the design based on the width of the screen that you're viewing the website on. Okay, so I know that when the minimum width and the range between minimum width and maximum width is 285 to 480. I know that right now, because this turns into purple, I know I'm within that zone, okay? So that is the first step in responsive design. Not terribly difficult, okay? So let's take this one step further, and I'm going to copy the rest of my selectors here. Okay, and I'm also going to give those different colors to illustrate the point. I'm going to go a little crazy with the colors. Let's save that. Now, one thing I want to bring out is the responsive codes technically do work in both Chrome and Firefox. The difference is in how Chrome and Firefox are built. So for example, Chrome will not let me get my browser even thinner than as you see it here. But Firefox, however, will, all right, just a little bit more, okay? So the media query measurements, these pixels right here are going to be just a little bit different, okay? So you can make the argument that this works specifically for Firefox. So I'm just going to take this line, and this is called a comment. And you guys really should be commenting on your code so you know exactly what you're doing, where you're doing it, when you did it. The comments can hold any amount of content and will not show in the browser. So I'm just going to put Firefox right there. So I know that only is going to work in Firefox, okay? So full width, responsive, everything's changed. Awesome. So I don't want the sidebar here though. That's a problem, okay? So I'm going to go down to ER1 and I'm going to set the width to 100% and I'm going to delete the float. I'm going to go to ER2, delete the float, and then also set that to 100%. Let's go back to Firefox and hit refresh. And now everything is row based. So with responsive design, you don't really want a 75-25 split. So you have two columns side by side. You really want to break it down in rows. It's a horizontal format and it should be broken down like so. All right. And let's take a look at that navigation. It's a little too tall. So I'm going to set that at 75 pixels. Firefox, refresh. Okay. Now you're getting it. Okay. So that media query technically does work for Chrome. We just can't see it. All right. So we need to figure out what exactly the width is of Chrome in order to develop a media query for it. So I'm going to start on line 56, I'm going to go all the way down to line 89, copy it, and then paste. And I'm just going to put in Chrome right here. All right. So how do I get the dimensions for Chrome? Well, if you click the vertical ellipses, okay, and you go to more tools and then go to developer tools, you should be able to get those dimensions. So I'm going to pop the developer tools outside of the browser. And I'm going to pull this in. And if you look right here in the top right-hand corner, the absolute maximum width is going to be 640 pixels. Okay. So I'll close DevTools. I know my pixel count, and let's give it a shot. So the minimum width, let's try 640. Save it. And go back to Chrome. Let's hit refresh. We'll push this in. Still nothing. Okay, well, let's play with the numbers a little bit more. 640 maximum width, Chrome, refresh, and there's our responsive design. So we need to have multiple media queries for the different devices or browsers that you want your website to be viewed on. Fortunately, for this project, you only need to do one set of media queries for any browser. It doesn't matter to me. But this will essentially allow you to use the exact infrastructure you built for your site in HTML, and then utilize all of the CSS that you made already, and then convert that or clone it into a specific media query where you can then independently change the characteristics of your selectors to create a variant design that will be seen on different browsers. So give this a shot. I'll upload the files for your reference, and good luck. I'm sure you guys will have no problem getting this. Just make sure you're looking at the details, you're testing in the browser, and you're referencing good information.